a good day. So, for today's video, we're gonna talk about the first cartoon appearance of that spaced out space parody. I'm talking about Duck Dodgers. So, alright, let's go.
Yeah! So, we start off in the office of Dr. IQ High, the Secretary of the Stratosphere. Dr. High summoned Duck Dodgers for a very important mission. Turns out, the world is dangerously low on the shaving cream atom known as Illudium Fosdex. Huh, that's the mission, eh? Get some shaving cream? Well, if that's the biggest problem that we're facing in the future, I guess we're doing pretty good then, hey? So there is allegedly an abundance of this Illudium Fosdex on Planet X, which happens to be inside the unknown zone. So, well then how is it known that Planet X is in there and that it has the shaving cream atom? Science! That's how! And so, on this important barbershop mission, Duck Dodgers goes forth! Also, Dodgers is accompanied with some backup. That in the form of eager young space cadet. A cadet that looks pretty youthful and pretty happy-go-lucky, so this potentially could be his, first practicum kind of mission. So it should be good experience for him. And, just like a rocket, Dodgers rockets off into the unknown zone. Even though, they really have no idea where Planet X is in this zone, it's freaking huge! They could be rocketing around for quite some time! Luckily, Space Cadet figures that seeing as every single planet along the way is in alphabetical order, Planet X should be pretty easy to find, right? Just keep on going straight ahead! Which seems kind of sketchy in a way, right? Every planet is alphabetized in the English alphabet. Kind of seems like a very elaborate trap of some sorts, Keep your head on a swivel, Dodgers! But yippee hooray! The plan actually works! They find the planet where X marks the spot and land safely. As Duck Dodgers plants the flag of Earth, claiming this X planet to be ours, so too lands on the planet a vessel from the planet Mars, where Marvin the Martian also claims ownership of this planet to his planet. This is quite the political stalemate, and therefore there is only one course of action. Disintegrate Duck Dodgers and keep the planet for Mars. And boy howdy, that plan worked like a charm. Unfortunately for us, I guess. Luckily, Space Cadet has a integrating pistol, so Duck Dodgers is brought back to life. Like a phoenix from the ashes. Or like a mallard duck from the ashes, which doesn't sound as impactful, but still pretty darn amazing. After some back and forth between Dodgers and Marvin, usually with Duck Dodgers being on the receiving end of all the damage, he is completely pissed off. So Dodgers has no other choice but to use the ultimate weapon. The big gun, the Acme Destructo Gun Thingamaroo. This thing is freaking powerful. It takes up most of the rocket. It's got a hand crank and lights and everything. This thing should blow Marvin the Martian off of Planet X. But Marvin also has a fantastic weapon, the Martian Matomic Masher, and he is set to retaliate on Duck Dodgers. So I guess logically we would be at quite the standstill, hey? Or, not, because both Dodgers and Marvin are both incredibly pig-headed and stubborn, and, well, it was a pretty nice planet, right? Planet X. It had X-shaped clouds, X-shaped trees, it was actually pretty beautiful. But now, boom! The planet has been reduced to a 2-cubed-foot blot of dirt. Wow, that little cube better have a whole lot of Illudium Fosdex in it, eh? But if Mars didn't take the planet, I guess technically The mission successfully failed! Yay! And potentially nobody on Earth can ever shave again, so beards ahoy, matey! And with that, that is the end of this, Ducky Tale!
Oh man, I tell you, they don't make them like these anymore, eh? Huh? What a fantastic cartoon! Daffy Duck for the win! Again! And really, everything about it, right, is just so top tier! The satire of it and how they parody the source material is fantastic! The jokes, the humor, all of that, just superb! And like I usually do say, I absolutely love the aesthetic that they have for the 1950s version of how the future looks. They have that certain style. They've used it many times in Looney Tunes before. And I gotta say, that style fits perfectly for a Buck Rogers parody cartoon. Looney Tunes always does a fantastic job with their cartoons, right? If it's their own characters doing original stories, it's awesome. And especially when they do a parody or a satire, they just crank it up to 11. Much like previously, we did see a satire involving Bugs Bunny when he was spoofing Superman as he was Super Rabbit. Right? Superman, that's a character that's massively popular, especially way back when. So if Bugs had a popular parody character, Daffy Duck would absolutely need one too. And thusly, we got this classic sci-fi adventure cartoon. But like I say, the satire of it, man, it's so good. The disintegrator gun disintegrating. The random planet called Planet X, where everything is shaped like the letter X. Man, that's so cool. And the whole point of the mission itself, right? If you're reading anything from Buck Rogers or anything like that, the mission is always of the utmost importance. So of course for this, it would be a ridiculous mission. Trying to find the atom that makes shaving cream? You can't shave with anything else? I heard you could shave with peanut butter, as ridiculous as that sounds. So if you haven't seen this cartoon before, I suggest you check it out, man, because anything in the golden age of Looney Tunes is golden. Well, I guess obviously. But with that, we do have some more behind the scenes kind of things with Daffy Duck, with Porky Pig, and all the characters they played, and all that kind of stuff going on over here.
So yes indeed, hey?
Duck Dodgers!
A classic Daffy Duck character. So how did this character come to be? For that, let us take a quick little look. So, Duck Dodgers is a parody of a classic science fiction character named Buck Rogers. So, for Buck Rogers, he first appeared in the newspaper comic strips on January 7th in 1929, in the comic strip called Buck Rogers in the 25th Century. Buck Rogers was hugely popular. He helped bring science fiction into popular culture. This Buck Rogers comic strip was huge, a massive success. So much of a success, as per usual, you just can't have one form of media for a character. So eventually, they made a whole bunch of books for him, toys, comic books. He had a radio series, a movie serial, and even his own TV series starting in 1950. At that point, the only thing he was missing was his own cartoon series. And everybody was making cartoons, so, you figure Buck Rogers would be a prime candidate for one of those. But instead of a Buck Rogers cartoon, we went to the world of Looney Tunes and got this parody cartoon starring Daffy Duck as the main character, Duck Dodgers. In the cartoon, Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century! But Buck Rogers being parodied by Daffy Duck does make a lot of sense, right? Especially for the namesake, Buck, Duck. But in this cartoon, Duck Dodgers did hang out with a bunch of other people. For example, he had a sidekick, which was Porky Pig as Young Space Cadet, the real hero of the show. But Buck Rogers, did have a bunch of adventures with a sidekick. Well, a bunch of different sidekicks. But the sidekick I think that they were kind of parodying in this cartoon would be the sidekick known as Buddy Deering, who was a younger, kind of eager cadet kind of a character. And yeah, that pretty much, kind of fits the bill for Eager Young Space Cadet. And yes, that's his full name. He doesn't really have an actual name like Jim or Bob or something. I guess Space Cadet is his last name? I don't know. But, it is kind of an interesting thing if you look at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. The director of the cartoon, Chuck Jones, the legend, he wrote Porky Pig as knowing that he's in a cartoon and he's just playing the part, going along with things, right? So he kind of takes the whole thing seriously, but he also kind of doesn't because he knows it's all a big laugh. Which is actually really great juxtaposition to Daffy Duck, because Daffy is like taking everything super seriously, even when everything falls apart around him. And, well, yeah, like, literally, Also in the cartoon, we did see Duck Dodgers getting his mission from the Secretary of the Stratosphere, who is also the Chief Scientist. His name, Dr. IQ High. Which, yes, he's the Chief Scientist. Of course he has a high IQ. So in the Buck Rogers world, if there was a Chief Scientist kind of character that Buck would constantly interact with, it would be that of Dr. Hewer, which I guess Dr. High, kind of basically was a bit of a play on him. Oh, in case you were wondering, yes, Buck Rogers did have a disintegrator pistol, but his did not fall apart like Duck Dodgers' disintegrator ray did. But, still, one of those things you have to include, right? So this was like a fantastic cartoon, because, man, the satire of it is fantastic, the actual humor and everything of it is just amazing, which is kind of sad, that we really only had one Duck Dodgers cartoon, at least in this golden age of Looney Tunes, right? Would have been nice if we had at least one or two more, but for that we would have had to have waited quite some time. The sequel to this cartoon came in 1980, practically 30 frickin' years later, in the short cartoon, Duck Dodgers and the Return of the 24th and a half century. Which again, pretty darn awesome. Things did expand quite a bit more after that. And finally, in 2003, we got to see a full-fledged Duck Dodgers cartoon series. It did last for 2 years, it brought back a lot of the main characters, and it really expanded on everything Duck Dodgers, which I am so happy of, and is so great, oh my god! Not only that, but Duck Dodgers did appear in a couple of video games. Daffy Duck, The Marvin Missions, and Duck Dodgers starring Daffy Duck. And, as you could imagine, you did also see Duck Dodgers in the Looney Tunes comic book from DC Comics from time to time. So what they lacked for Duck Dodgers content earlier on, they're really making up for it now, which is great. But, for now, with Duck Dodgers, the basics of this first cartoon, we get to see how much he does after, but, we'll get to these other stories, when we get to them. But, now you know. And so with this, those, and the other things, I guess that's that. Also, if you're interested, I created my own comic book channel, 215 Comics. And currently, I have created my own cartoon series, The Adventures of the Density. And recently started a radio series featuring my newest character, Elastomorph, with more titles to come. So if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link up top here to that channel, and some links at the end of the video. Yay! Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, feel free to do so. Or anything else, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, have a great day. Thanks.